Alright, so with Soul Leveling Arise coming out very, very, very soon, it's time to update our weapon tier lists. And if you saw pretty much about a month ago, these were my last two tier lists that I did for both Jinwoo weapons and also Hunter weapons. But today we're going to combine into one video to do it all at once because there's not really anywhere near as much changes as before. So let's get to it. Alright, so some changes that I'm going to be making towards the tier list is going to be removing the E tier completely, as I feel like it just creates a bit too much disparity between the weapons. So without making any changes, this is what the Hunter weapon tier list is going to look like currently, but I do have a ton of changes that I do want to actually make. So before I get into the brand new weapon, which is Silvermane Baekhyunho's weapon, let's talk about some changes that I do actually want to make to this tier list. And starting off, I think when I first made this tier list, I definitely really underestimated the steel longsword and its damage increases of going up to 12%, just a flat damage increase when you have a type advantage over an enemy. And I didn't really think that was as good at first, but it's definitely a lot better than I originally thought. So I'm probably going to go and bump it up probably at least one tier. I'm not so sure yet if it's A tier. I think for me it's still a B tier, mainly just because it's sort of a weapon that does need you to have that type advantage, so it makes it a little bit more niche when it comes to like the steel bow, which is like just very universal and always nice. And then I also want to change up the steel staff as well, as this weapon is just nowhere near as good as its other potential counterpart, which is going to be the Ancient Grimoire. So yeah, the fact that these two weapons are on the same level just doesn't necessarily sit right with me, so I think this weapon should definitely go down to the C tier. And then I also want to change the ranking that I originally had for Lee Bora's weapon, as I didn't really think this weapon was as good as, well, it's definitely much better. I definitely think it's much better now than I originally thought, as being able to increase the chance and the amount of damage that enemies take from crits, I think is really, really useful, which then also just elevates how well Lee Bora can act as a supporting DPS character, so I think this weapon is also going to go up to the A tier. And then finally, the steel axe, I'm also going to probably look to bump down, as honestly, all of the defense scalers in this game, or mainly the high DPS defense scalers in this game, being Dongsu and also Baekhyunho, don't really utilize their core attacks whatsoever, so this weapon is just useless for now. So I'm also going to put this weapon down into the D tier. So then I think that's everything in terms of changes. So then I want to go over the brand new weapon that came out with Silvermane Baekhyunho, which is Howling White Tiger Soul. And this weapon is honestly fantastic, obviously because you can get it for free, or you can't anymore because it's the event's pretty much over by now. But what's so good about this weapon is it just, well, first of all, it just makes Baekhyunho a much better DPS as a whole, as it allows basically himself to activate his own passive a lot easier because he's taking away his own HP to then deal extra damage, which is always really useful. And then just also that flat increase of basic attack damage is always really, really nice, which is just going to help Baekhyunho a ton and makes other weapons on him just look really, really bad in comparison to this one right here, which I guess is what all SSR exclusive Hunter weapons should do. So then I think overall, I think that's going to put it in the S tier. All of the tiers aren't really organized in any way to show what's better or worse than the other. I'm just putting them randomly just wherever I want, wherever I feel like it. So yeah, that is everything to do with all of the Hunter weapons. I don't really think I want to make any more changes. I think I'm pretty happy with all of this as of right now. I might bump down some of these. I'm not too sure. Yeah, I'll probably bump down this staff right here because it's just a much worse version of this one. And then the book at C tier I think is actually alright. And then this bow at C tier I think is also okay. I think these are probably the two best Hunter weapons in the game. Oh, and actually probably this sword right here because it does the weakness attribute damage. Maybe I might put that C tier. Yeah. Alright, so then on to Sung Jinwoo's weapon tier list. And this honestly just hurts my eyes just to look at as to what I was thinking in the previous month, but it was at the start of the game, so it's understandable. And by just removing the E tier from the previous tier list, this is what it currently looks like. And yeah, there's a ton of changes that need to happen. And starting off, you might notice that there's this purple tier right here that's to do with getting changes, as some weapons are actually getting buffs and also nerfs. As essentially in one of the previous developer notes, we basically learned that the Demon King's Longsword, the Orc's Broadsword, Rock Golem Hammer, Night Killer, West Wind are all going to be getting buffs / nerfs. So then because I don't necessarily know the size and magnitude of these buffs and nerfs, it does mean that I can't necessarily rank these weapons as of yet, because there's not really much point in doing so. As pretty much this tier list just could become like void pretty much very quickly, depending on how much these weapons are buffed / nerfed basically. So I believe that's all 5 of the weapons that are going to be getting buffs and nerfs. I think all of them are getting buffed except for Westwind. I think the Westwind buff on its third dupe is actually getting nerfed, which is essentially this passive right here, where you basically use your skill and then you apply the Westwind sort of like a buff or whatever, which would increase the damage of your skill by 30%, and then you can stack up to 5 times, which would just make this weapon do ridiculous amounts of damage, and was definitely by far one of the best weapons in the game. So yeah, that's why I'm not necessarily ranking these weapons, as depending on how much Netmarble decide to change them, it could be massive, it could be small, or so we have no idea. But that's besides the point, as there's a ton minor changes that I do want to make with this tier list, as there's a lot of weapons that definitely need going up and a lot of weapons that definitely need to come down as well. And starting off in the D tier, I think pretty much everything in this D tier is fine. I think I'm quite happy with, except for this weapon right here being the Frostbite Falchion, as I wasn't really, I didn't really necessarily understood how it worked before, as pretty much my previous understanding of this weapon was throughout the whole duration of your skill, you'd only have a 20% chance to freeze, but I think it's with every hit you have a chance to freeze, so it makes this weapon a little bit better. But I still don't think this weapon is anything out of the ordinary, crazy good or whatever, so I think I'm only going to put it in the C tier for now. I might put it up again later, but probably not. Alright, and then onto the C tier, there's a ton of weapons that need going up, honestly. Yeah, there's probably at least 3 in here, which is going to be Karsuka's Venom Fang, as until you get to Power of Destruction, you don't really get to realize the true potential of this weapon, and that's simply just because it applies the bleed debuff, and what we've learned throughout the game is that the bleed debuff is a very, very powerful debuff within this game, and is why characters like Silvermane Baek Yoonho and Kang Tae-shik are really, really good hunters in this game. So honestly, I'm probably going to put it all the way up in the A tier. I think this weapon is actually really useful, and because obviously you can get a dupe of it for free, so it's pretty damn good, I think. And the same goes for the, I think it's the Naga Trident as well. This weapon is also fantastic, as this is one of the only weapons that I haven't actually managed to pull so far in the game. But yeah, this passive here, and obviously especially with dupes, but I'm not covering dupes in this tier list, but it's still really, really good. But obviously when you use a base attack, you have a 75% chance to create an additional water explosion in front of you, which makes it which does a pretty good amount of damage from what I've seen from people using it. So I think this weapon is actually really, really good. So I think, yeah, this weapon definitely does need buffing up. I'm not too sure if it's A tier. I think definitely with dupes it is, but I'm not ranking it off of that, so I'm going to put it B tier for now, as I don't think it necessarily has like a crazy, like very, very like good use like Karsuka's Venom Fang does, so I'm just going to keep it in the B tier for now. And then the final weapon that I want to buff up probably quite a lot is going to be Orb of Avarice, as Orb of Avarice, I just never really realized how good of a weapon this would be, because it's the same when I first ranked the Scythe. I just didn't think it would be as good, as I just felt like the drawbacks would be just a bit too potent. However, I was completely wrong on both of these cases, as with the Orb of Avarice, you get 50% extra damage on your Purgatory skill, which is just this skill right here, and then you increase your mana point consumption by 10%, so it makes it cost more, but you get more damage out of it. But this damage increase is just amazing and is very, very nice, and it makes it probably the best fire weapon in the game. So honestly, it could go S tier for that alone, because there's just no good fire weapons in this game currently. But I'm going to keep it A tier for now, as yeah, I think the Orb of Avarice is a very, very good weapon. And then I think that leaves everything for the C tier, which then brings me on to the B tier. So just to do this a bit quicker, I'm going to bump down Black Hawk as well as Lost Dragon Sword, as they both give you attack increases. However, I don't really feel like those attack increases are anything too major anyways, whereas I feel like a lot of other weapons in here grant you much bigger damage increases, especially with the Ridiru family longbow, and also this spear right here, which I've forgotten the name of. So yeah, I don't think these weapons are on the level of these 3 right here, or these 4, I guess. And then in terms of weapons I do actually want to move up, I think honestly probably a lot of these weapons I want to move up, to be honest, as Ridiru family's longbow is a fantastic weapon, being able to just increase your damage by up to what, 80%, which is insane. So you can get really, really high amounts of damage increases for this, and it's obviously going to be one of the better light weapons in the game, so I think this weapon definitely needs to go up. And then the Demon Knight Spear I think also should go up, as I think when I first did this tier list I completely read it wrong, but because I didn't actually know that it just removed the cooldown of Holy Spear, which is its skill, so it means you can just spam it continuously for that duration of the 3 seconds, which makes this weapon do a ton of damage, especially with dupes. But again, as I said, I'm not going to be doing this tier list based off of dupes. So I also think both of these weapons go up into the A tier. I think these weapons are really, really good. And then as for Vulcan's Rage, I don't know, maybe I'm just a bit of a hater, but I'm not really the biggest fan of this weapon. I think Orb of Avarice is definitely better, so I'm not going to put it on the same level as it. So I think I'm going to keep this weapon alongside the Trident in the B tier. And then as for the Shadow Scythe, which is the very last, well, the only weapon that was in the A tier previously, I'm going to move this all the way up to the S tier. I think this weapon is fantastic. It's a weapon I've used a ton, and because it's a free-to-play weapon, you get 1 dupe of it for free. It's just amazing. So yeah, this weapon is also going to go into the S tier. And then as for the last 3, I think I'm probably going to keep all 3 of these the same. I think these are definitely the top 3 weapons in the game, outside of the potential new weapon being the Moon Shadow. But yeah, I think I like this. It's pretty good, I think. Okay, so moving on to the very final part of the video, which is going to be the very, very last weapon that is currently in the game and the latest addition to the game, which is going to be Moon Shadow. And Moon Shadow is a fantastic weapon, as pretty much it has just a great amount of synergy with a lot of other dark weapons, as you can apply this Lunar Eclipse debuff, which increases the damage enemies take by 10%, as well as the dark damage they take by 10% as well. So when you combine this with the Plumflower Sword or the Scythe, it makes it a great pairing. And what's also really good about this skill is you can also slow down time for 3 seconds, which is really, really good. So you can slow down the pace of the battle whilst also getting all of your cooldowns back at the same normal speed. So you can get those off really nicely and very easily. And this weapon overall is just really good. The skill has a pretty good range, I feel. As you can see right here, yeah, it's a pretty wide range of where you can hit damage, and then you can see the time slow effect there. So, and I think because a lot of people are opting to use a lot of just multiple dark weapons in their loadouts, as a lot of people, I feel like no matter what the enemy is resistant to, I think people are always going to be using double dark weapons, as I think they are just the best weapons currently in the game. So I think it's also going to join all of the rest of these weapons into the S tier. But overall, I think I'm actually pretty happy with this tier list. I think some weapons maybe in the C tier might be better than I might be thinking, but apart from that, I think a lot of these weapons are actually really good. So if you did enjoy this video, you found it useful or helpful just in general, then don't forget to like and subscribe, as it helps a ton, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace!